Strategy. Every major company has one, right?
Yeah.
Often these beautiful, glossy documents, huge roadmaps covering everything from, I don't know, massive cloud migrations to the absolute latest in generative AI. But here's the stark reality check. It comes from Gartner Research, pretty extensive stuff.
Mhm.
Less than half of all enterprises actually manage to hit the majority of the strategic goals set by their IT leaders.
Wow, less than half.
Yeah, think about that. We pour millions into crafting these plans. They seem brilliant on paper. The tech is sound. The financials look good. But then, when it actually comes time to execute, something goes
Your
wrong.
execution fumbles. Yeah.
Exactly. So why?
Yeah.
Why do so many of these strategies, especially in tech where the stakes are so high, fail to deliver real business outcomes?
Yeah.
It feels like this gap, this execution gap, is what separates the really impactful CIOs from the ones, well, stuck managing the servers.
That execution gap is precisely what we're zeroing in on today. We're doing a deep dive into what makes execution work, pulling insights mainly from Chapter 6 of CIO Leadership and Technology Strategy, but also weaving in other key industry sources and ideas.
Okay.
Our mission, really, is to map out how top CIOs move beyond just having a plan. How do they actually get it done? How do they use vision, like a North Star for the whole organization? And critically, how do they design and use incentives? And that's everything from paychecks to promotions to, interesting projects to get the entire IT organization fired up, focused, and all rowing in the same direction.
Getting everyone pulling together. So if you listening are looking to really boost your leadership game in tech, maybe you're a manager on the rise, maybe specializing in information systems, maybe even aiming for that C-suite spot, this deep dive is for you. We're going to cut through the theory and get straight to the practical steps you can use. So follow the series. Maybe share this with someone else you know who's ready to lead with real impact. Let's get into it.
Okay, so to really tackle that execution gap we mentioned, a CIO can't just rely on tech skills. They need a solid grasp of, leadership and motivation theory. And maybe the most powerful tool they have, surprisingly non-technical, is a really clear, really compelling vision.
More than just a slogan on a poster.
Oh, much more. Think of it as the organization's North Star, like we said. It gives everyone that fundamental sense of purpose, of direction. Without it, what the sources describe is, it's drift. You get teams stuck in their own silos, just focused on keeping the lights on day to day.
Fragmented efforts.
Exactly. Fragmented, disengaged even. But with a strong vision, one that's communicated constantly and consistently, you can transform that same group into a unified team, almost racing towards that strategic goal together.
That sounds very much like transformational leadership theory in action. It's
Yeah.
not just about managing tasks, it's about inspiring people.
It absolutely is. Transformational leadership is all about leaders communicating a vision that's clear, yes, but also meaningful. It taps into motivations that go way beyond just a paycheck. It gives people an inspiring mission, a sense of, okay, we're part of something bigger here.
So the vision becomes the filter for decisions.
Precisely. When a tough call needs to be made about resources or priorities clash, the team shouldn't have to guess, what does the boss want? They should be asking, which path gets us closer to the vision? It empowers them.
Can you give an example? How does that play out?
Sure. Think about healthcare IT. Let's say, average CIO might frame the vision as something functional, like migrate to the cloud to cut costs. Okay, fine. But a transformational CIO, they might frame it as improving patients' lives through faster, more reliable, more secure healthcare IT.
Ah, okay. Big difference.
Huge difference. Suddenly, the everyday technical work, patching a server, writing secure code, optimizing a database, it's connected to this much larger, frankly more noble purpose. That unleashes a ton of intrinsic motivation, the kind money can't easily buy.
Okay, that makes sense. Shifting from the purely transactional to the transformational. But, all right, you've got the vision, the why. Now you need the mechanics to get people moving the how. And that brings us to motivation itself, and specifically, Victor Vroom's expectancy theory. That sounds foundational for designing incentives.
It really is. Vroom's expectancy theory is incredibly practical for managers because it kind of breaks motivation down into a logical chain of beliefs. He argued that motivation really clicks only when people believe three things are true.
Okay, what are the three?
First is expectancy. That's the belief that if I put in the effort, I can actually achieve the required performance. Do I have the skills, the tools, the support?
Right, can I actually do this?
Exactly. The second is instrumentality. That's the belief that if I achieve high performance, I will actually receive certain outcomes or rewards. Will my success be noticed and rewarded?
Okay, performance leads to reward. Makes sense.
And the third is valence. This is the belief that those outcomes or rewards are things I personally value. Is the reward something I actually want?
Got it. Effort leads to performance, performance leads to outcomes, and I actually care about those outcomes.
Precisely. And here's the kicker. If any one of those links in the chain is broken, or even just perceived as weak, motivation plummets.
So for a CIO rolling out, say, a big new strategic initiative, they need to check all three boxes for the teams involved.
Absolutely. Let's take that complex new security system deployment example. If you assign an engineer to lead it, but you haven't given them the right training or support, expectancy is broken, they might think, I can't succeed no matter how hard I try. Motivation drops.
Right.
Or let's say they knock it out of the park. Brilliant performance. But then the promised recognition, maybe a bonus or a key role on the next project, it doesn't materialize. Instrumentality is broken. They'll think, why bother trying so hard next time?
Right, you burn them out on the system.
You do. And finally, valence. Maybe the reward is delivered, but it's, I don't know, a generic plaque or a team pizza party. But what that high-performing engineer really valued was the chance to take an advanced AI course or get dedicated time to work on an innovative side project.
The reward missed the mark.
Completely. So the valence is low or zero. The whole motivational system fails. So the CIO's job isn't just setting the vision, it's clarifying that path to success. Expectancy, making the rewards clear and reliable instrumentality, and ensuring those rewards actually matter to the people doing the work balance.
That emphasis on clarity leads us nicely into goal-setting theory, right? Locke and Latham's work. Specificity matters.
Oh, absolutely. This is critical for execution. Those vague, high-level mandates you sometimes see on strategy slides, things like be more innovative or dramatically improve customer centricity.
Yeah, sounds good, but what do I do Monday morning?
Exactly. They're basically useless at the operational level. Decades of solid research confirms it. Performance gets a massive boost when goals are specific and challenging. But, importantly, those goals need to be coupled with real commitment from the individual or team and ongoing feedback on progress.
Specific and challenging. And the data backs this up for top teams.
Overwhelmingly. One study found that something like 85% of members in top-performing teams reported that their goals were clearly defined and understood by everyone. That clear line of sight from here's my task today to here's how it helps us hit that big strategic objective, that's what really focuses effort and energy.
So instead of just be innovative, you need something concrete, measurable. Like the example. Develop and deploy 2 specific new customer-facing features by the end of Q4, and aim to improve our Net Promoter Score by 10% as a result.
Perfect example. Everyone understands that. They know what success looks like, they can measure their progress, and they know when they've hit the mark. It creates focus and allows for celebration.
Okay, but here's a potential tension. We're talking about specific goals, metrics, targets, maybe bonuses tied to them. Doesn't focusing too much on those measurable outcomes risk stifling the creativity, the complex problem solving, the very things we need from our best IT people?
That is the crucial question, and it brings us right into the heart of motivating knowledge workers in the 21st century. We absolutely have to understand the balance, the interplay between intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Daniel Pink's work is really insightful here.
Right. So just to clarify, extrinsic rewards are the external things, the carrots and sticks, salary, bonuses, promotions, that kind of stuff.
Correct. And intrinsic motivators are the internal drivers, that sense of purpose we talked about. Achieving mastery in a skill, having autonomy or control over your work, and just the basic satisfaction of accomplishment.
And Pink's warning was about over-relying on the extrinsic stuff for certain kinds of work.
Exactly. His research, summarizing a lot of behavioral science, sounded a pretty strong alarm bell. For tasks that are complex, require creativity, non-routine problem solving, which, let's face it, describes most high-value IT work like software architecture, advanced analytics, cybersecurity strategy, leaning too heavily on big contingent if-then financial rewards can actually backfire.
How so? Backfire how?
It can narrow focus. If you tell a software team you get a massive bonus only if you ship this complex feature by Friday, they're likely to cut corners on quality, avoid innovative but risky approaches, maybe skip writing good documentation. They focus only on hitting the metric, potentially at the expense of long-term value or stability. It can actually reduce cognitive performance for complex tasks.
Okay, so it's not that money doesn't matter at all.
Oh, absolutely not. Fair compensation is essential. It's what Herzberg called a hygiene factor. If people feel they're unfairly paid, forget motivation, they'll be actively demotivated, maybe even looking for the exit. You have to get compensation right.
But it's not the whole story for sustained effort.
Not for the best effort, not for the creative, committed effort you need for strategic success. Once pay is fair, the real drivers of sustained performance, according to Pink and others, are fostering autonomy, giving people meaningful control over how they do their work. Mastery, providing opportunities to learn, grow, and get better at things that matter. And purpose, constantly connecting their work back to that larger, inspiring vision.
So Section 1 basically lays the groundwork. You need the why, the clear, compelling vision. And you need to understand the how of motivation, creating the right conditions, setting specific goals, and balancing intrinsic and extrinsic rewards carefully.
Precisely. These are the fundamental principles. Now, we need to see how CIOs actually put this into practice, the systems and mechanisms they use day to day to make strategy happen.
All right, so moving from those core principles to actually getting things done in a complex organization, the CIO role itself seems to transform here. It's not just about technology infrastructure anymore, is it?
Not at all. To bridge that execution gap, the CIO has to wear multiple hats. They're definitely the chief technology officer, but they also have to be the chief strategist, the chief communicator, and maybe most importantly, the chief motivator. They effectively become the lead storyteller for the technology vision.
The chief storyteller, like that.
It's vital for alignment. Ross Meyercord, a tech CEO, really emphasizes this. In today's world, with more distributed teams, agile methods, remote work, the CIO's ability to constantly clearly articulate that vision, maybe it's we're becoming a truly data-driven organization delivering seamless digital experiences, and not just say it, but embody the values behind it. That's critical.
So people follow the leader, not just the PowerPoint deck.
Exactly. The strategy document might gather dust, but people watch the leader. They listen to how the leader reinforces the narrative in meetings, in decisions, in recognizing success.
And if that vision is the destination on the map, then the goals and the metrics, those are the turn-by-turn directions.
That's a great analogy. And the CIO's job is to make sure everyone, whether they're in network operations or application development or cybersecurity, sees how their specific daily work, their metrics, fit into that overall journey. They need to constantly reinforce that map, connect the dots in every review, every resource allocation discussion.
But even with a great storyteller CIO and a clear map, we still have that statistic hanging over us. Less than half succeed in execution. Gartner's research points to some core foundations that need strengthening.
Yes, Gartner highlights 3 really critical pillars for improving execution discipline: better planning, more effective measuring, and robust processes for staying on track. Think of these as the organizational machinery that turns strategy into reality.
Okay, let's break those down. First, planning. What does better planning look like in this context? It's more than just project schedules, I assume.
Oh, much more. Rigorous planning means, first, really defining success in clear, unambiguous terms, setting direction through clear objectives, maybe using established IT principles, and then, yes, defining the steps. But the crucial part, often missed, is grounding the plan in a brutally honest assessment of your current reality. Meaning you have to look at your capabilities, your resources, and especially your organizational weaknesses. Is there significant technical debt holding you back? Is there a known skills gap in a critical area, like, say, cloud security or AI engineering?
You have to account for those roadblocks up front.
You have to. Ignoring them is just setting the team up to fail. We see this all the time with exciting new tech like generative AI right now. There's a rush to plan, to invest, without maybe fully considering the integration challenges, the data readiness, the security implications, the need for new skills.
And that leads to problems down the line.
It leads to buyer's remorse. There was data suggesting something like 1 in 4 IT leaders regretted making quick AI investments because the initial planning wasn't holistic enough. Good planning forces those tough, sometimes uncomfortable conversations about, are we really ready for this?
Okay, so robust, honest planning is pillar 1. Pillar 2 is measuring. Metrics. Everyone talks about metrics, but how do we make them actually useful for execution?
Right, metrics are everywhere, but often they're just vanity metrics or historical reports. To drive execution, good metrics need to be actionable. They should really answer 5 key questions for any strategic initiative.
5 questions. Okay, what are they?
1, what exactly are we measuring? 2, where are we today? Baseline. 3, what's the target or goal? 4, what's the intended business outcome this metric supports? And 5, this is the sophisticated one. What's the balance point?
The balance point. Unpack that one.
The balance point is like a guardrail. It's an indicator that warns you if pushing too hard on one metric starts to negatively impact another important strategic goal. For example, say you're heavily incentivizing cost reduction in IT operations. Your balance point might be system uptime or customer satisfaction scores.
So if uptime drops below, say, 99.9% because you cut maintenance staff too deeply.
Exactly. Then even if your cost metric looks great, it's green. The balance point metric, uptime, now red, tells you the cost cutting has gone too far and is now strategically harmful. It forces a more holistic view than just optimizing a single number.
That makes sense. Prevents optimizing yourself into a ditch. And you also need different kinds of metrics, predictive versus lagging.
Yes, that's crucial too. Lagging metrics tell you what happened after the fact, like the final sales numbers for a new product launch. They measure the result. Predictive metrics, sometimes called leading indicators, give you an early warning, a sign of whether you're on track to hit the result.
Like tracking developer velocity or code deployment frequency.
Perfect examples. Tracking how quickly teams can deploy code might be predictive of your overall market agility. Tracking the percentage of customer service calls resolved in the first contact might predict future customer churn rates. You need both lagging metrics to confirm results and predictive metrics to allow for course correction before it's too late.
Got it. Plan rigorously. Measure effectively with balance points and leading lagging indicators. What's the third pillar? Staying on track.
Staying on track. This acknowledges that strategy isn't a set it and forget it exercise, especially not today. The environment is just too volatile. Think about how quickly things like, again, generative AI are disrupting plans made just 6 months ago.
So regular check-ins are essential.
Absolutely. Structured, regular reviews. We're seeing data that suggests most top executives review their strategy formally at least twice a year, often more, maybe in dedicated quarterly sessions.
But it's not just about having the meeting, right? It's about the discipline.
Exactly. The key here is the rigor of the review process. And interestingly, a perfectly valid outcome of a strategy review is deciding not to change anything. Confirming that the current strategy is still relevant, still the right path after careful consideration, that actually reinforces commitment and stability.
But what really makes or breaks staying on track?
2 things, ultimately. Non-negotiable accountability, clear ownership for every strategic initiative, and unwavering executive commitment. If the top leadership isn't actively sponsoring and championing the strategy, removing roadblocks, making tough resource calls, it's almost certainly doomed to fail, no matter how good the plan or the metrics are.
Which brings us back to incentives, but maybe from a different angle. Using incentives to drive culture change as part of execution.
Yes, this is where the rubber really meets the road in terms of motivation theory. Incentives, again, broadly defined, absolutely, must reinforce the desired behaviors you need for the strategy. And often, that means actively dismantling incentives that reinforce old, unhelpful habits.
Like the classic IT hero problem.
Oh, the IT hero. We all know that person, right?
Yeah.
The brilliant coder or sysadmin who swoops in late at night, works miracles, saves the day from some catastrophic outage, and gets showered with praise, maybe a spot bonus, definitely job security.
Yeah, seems like a good thing on the surface.
But think about the culture it reinforces. It rewards firefighting over fire prevention. It rewards individual heroics, maybe even knowledge hoarding that contributed to the crisis, over teamwork and stable systems. It incentivizes chaos, which is the polar opposite of that lean service factory or high reliability vision most CIOs are aiming for.
So the strategic CIO needs to flip the script.
Precisely. The counter strategy is to design incentives that reward the teams that prevented the outage in the first place, maybe through meticulous proactive maintenance, writing excellent documentation that lets others solve problems, building resilient systems, successful cross-training, and knowledge sharing.
Rewarding prevention,
Yeah.
not just cure.
Exactly. It signals that true strategic value lies in disciplined, systemic improvement, not individual acts of chaotic brilliance. But let's be honest, this can be politically tricky. You might be de-incentivizing people who are currently seen as stars because they thrive in that chaos.
The transparency becomes really important.
Crucial. How performance is measured, how bonuses are allocated, how promotions are decided. It needs to be transparent and clearly linked to the new desired behaviors. Think team-based achievements, peer feedback on collaboration, contributions to shared knowledge bases, successful automation projects. If people perceive the reward system as unfair, especially your high performers, it's an incredibly fast way to kill motivation and derail your entire strategy. Okay, so we've talked vision, motivation theory, planning, measuring, incentives. To make this all feel more concrete, let's dive into a really well-known narrative example. It's the fictionalized case study of Jim Barton, the new CIO at IVK Corporation, from the book The Adventures of an IT Leader.
Right, this is a classic teaching case. Barton walks into a mess, basically.
He really does. He finds an IT department that's technically skilled, no doubt, but totally dysfunctional. They're working in silos, they're deeply skeptical of management, morale is in the basement, and the rest of the business. They see IT purely as a cost center, unreliable and unaccountable. It's a pretty common scenario for incoming tech leaders inheriting a troubled function.
So where does he even start fixing the tech?
Interestingly, no. Barton realizes pretty quickly that the root problems aren't just technical, they're cultural and psychological. His first major strategic move is actually crafting that unifying vision we talked about earlier. He frames the future of IT as becoming a lean service factory.
A lean service factory. What's the thinking behind that phrase?
It's quite clever, actually. Factory signals efficiency, standardization, reliability, scale, things a business desperately needs. But service retains that element of professional pride, customer focus, quality delivery that resonates with the IT staff. It's aspirational, lean service, but also grounded in operational factory. It aims to professionalize IT without making it feel like just a commodity pipeline.
Okay, vision established. But you mentioned the team was skeptical. How does he get them to buy into this lean service factory idea when they probably just heard corporate jargon before?
He uses radical transparency, almost uncomfortably so. He holds town hall meetings, all-hands sessions where he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He acknowledges the past failures, validates the team's frustrations, admits the lack of trust between IT and the business.
He meets them where they are.
Exactly. By showing he understood their reality and wasn't just going to impose another top-down dictate by essentially saying, I'm on your side, let's fix this together, he starts to slowly chip away at that skepticism. He makes them partners in diagnosing the problem, which makes them more likely to be partners in the solution.
And then the execution part. Did he make structural changes to back up this vision?
Yeah.
How did he use metrics and incentives?
Yes, the structural changes were key signals. One of the most significant moves was how he handled IT risk and security. He restructured the department, gave the head of risk management a direct line reporting to him, elevating the function's importance, and crucially, he tied their success metrics and therefore their performance reviews and potential rewards directly to measurable improvements in things like system uptime and reducing security incidents.
So actions speaking louder than words, showing that stability and risk management were now top priorities.
Absolutely. It sent a very clear, nonverbal message throughout the entire IT organization. The old way of firefighting is over. Proactive stability is what gets valued and rewarded now.
And what about incentives beyond just metrics? You mentioned intrinsic motivation earlier.
Right. Barton was smart about using psychological rewards and empowerment. For instance, after a major security breach happened, these things still occur. Instead of launching a blame game, he made a point of publicly praising the cross-functional collaboration that was required to resolve the issue quickly.
Ah, so rewarding the teamwork itself.
Precisely. He was implicitly incentivizing communication and breaking down silos for the next crisis. He also focused on empowerment. He identified high-performing technical staff and deliberately pushed decision-making authority down to them in their areas of expertise. That gave them autonomy, a powerful intrinsic motivator we know engineers value highly.
So let's recap Barton's approach.
Yeah.
He aligned the vision, lean service factory, with structural changes, elevating risk, and with incentives, both extrinsic metrics on stability and intrinsic praising collaboration, granting autonomy.
Yes, that alignment was the engine of the turnaround, and it worked. IT performance demonstrably improved, became more predictable, the team regained its discipline, and importantly, its pride. The business started to trust IT again.
And the ultimate sign of success.
The ultimate sign was Barton eventually being asked to present IVK's new IT-enabled business strategy directly to Wall Street analysts. That's a huge leap for a function that was previously hidden away and seen just as a cost drain. It showed IT had reclaimed its strategic value, largely thanks to getting the vision and execution alignment right.
That's a powerful story. But Barton's IVK is one company. For CIOs managing much larger, maybe global enterprises with thousands of IT staff, they need more systematic tools, right? Frameworks to apply these principles at scale.
Absolutely. Narrative is great for understanding, but you need scalable frameworks for consistent execution. Probably the most well-known and robust tool for overall strategic alignment is the Balanced Scorecard, or BSC, developed by Kaplan and Norton back in the 90s.
Balanced Scorecard. I've definitely heard of it. What's the core idea?
The genius of the BSC is right there in the name, balance. It was designed specifically to combat the tendency for organizations to get tunnel vision, often focusing only on short-term financial results. IT, for example, often gets judged solely on budget adherence, the financial perspective.
Right, the cost center trap again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The BSC forces leaders to create and track metrics across four distinct but interconnected perspectives simultaneously.
Okay, what are the four?
There's the financial perspective, things like cost efficiency, ROI on IT projects. Then there's the customer perspective. How does IT impact external or internal customers? Think satisfaction scores, net promoter score, application usability. Third is internal process perspective. How efficient and effective are our core IT operations? Metrics like system uptime, software deployment frequency, incident resolution time.
Now the fourth?
The fourth is learning and growth. This focuses on the organization's ability to change, improve, and innovate for the future. Metrics here could include employee skills development, percentage of staff certified in key technologies, employee engagement scores, investment in R&D.
So balancing cost, customer impact, internal efficiency, and future capability. Why is that so powerful for a CIO?
Because it allows the CIO to explicitly demonstrate the value chain of IT. They can build a strategy map showing the cause and effect links, for example. By investing X in learning and growth, training our team in cloud security, we improve our internal processes, reducing security breaches and improving system stability, which leads to better customer outcomes. Higher user satisfaction, less downtime, which ultimately supports the company's financial goals. Lower operational risk, potentially higher revenue.
It makes the strategic contribution of IT visible and logical.
Undeniable, really. It shifts the conversation away from just cost to value creation across multiple dimensions.
Okay, BSC is one major framework. What else is commonly used? Maybe something more agile.
For more dynamic environments, especially driving ambitious goals, OKRs objectives and key results have become incredibly popular, popularized by companies like Intel and Google.
OKRs. Right. How do they differ from traditional goals?
OKRs have a specific structure. The objective is meant to be qualitative, ambitious, inspirational. Something like dramatically elevate our organization's data analytics capability and responsiveness. It sets a clear direction.
Okay, big picture goal.
Then, for each objective, you define usually 3 to 5 key results. These must be quantitative, measurable, verifiable, and challenging. They define what success looks like for the objective. For that data analytics objective, KRs might be reduce average time to generate standard business dashboards from 10 days to 2 days, or increase adoption of the new self-service analytics platform to 75% of target users, or achieve 99.99% uptime for the core data pipeline.
Specific, measurable results. Makes sense. But what's the really unique thing about how OKRs are often used, especially regarding motivation?
The crucial distinction, and this is key, especially in tech and creative fields, OKRs are very often kept separate from direct compensation and performance reviews.
Separate from bonuses.
Because the goal of OKRs is typically to encourage ambitious stretch goals. If you tie hitting 100% of your KRs directly to your bonus, what happens? People will naturally set safer, more easily achievable goals to guarantee their payout.
It discourages ambition.
Exactly. By decoupling OKRs from compensation, you free teams up to aim higher, to target maybe 70% achievement on a really ambitious KR without fearing financial penalty if they fall short. The motivation shifts. It becomes less about the extrinsic reward, the bonus, and more about the intrinsic drivers, the challenge itself, pride in pushing boundaries, healthy competition, the desire for mastery. Google is famous for using OKRs this way to fuel innovation.
Interesting. So the incentive is the achievement itself. We should also probably briefly touch on the Lippitt-Noster model for change, right, as a sort of diagnostic tool.
Yes, it's a very useful, practical checklist for anyone leading a change initiative, which most strategic execution involves. It basically says that for successful change, you need 5 essential ingredients: a clear vision, the necessary skills in the workforce, the right incentives, there's that word again, adequate resources, time, money, tools, and a concrete action plan.
And if one is missing, you get predictable problems.
That's the model's power. It predicts the outcome if an element is weak. For instance, if you have everything else but you neglect incentives, the model predicts you'll get resistance, people asking, what's in it for me? Why should I change my behavior? It just reinforces how critical getting the motivational levers right is for any transformation.
Okay, so vision, skills, incentives, resources, Action plan makes sense. Finally, let's connect all this back to the bigger organizational picture, IT governance, or ITG. How does governance interact with the information strategy, the IS?
This is a really important link. Research consistently shows that both a well-defined information strategy, IS, and effective IT governance, ITG, individually contribute positively to overall firm performance. But the really fascinating finding is the interaction effect.
How they work together.
Exactly. Studies show that IT governance has a positive moderating effect on the relationship between the information strategy and firm performance.
So translate that. What does moderating effect mean in practical terms?
It means that good IT governance amplifies the positive impact of a good information strategy. You could have the most brilliant strategy on paper, but if your organization lacks the governance, structures, the oversight from top management, the clear processes, the portfolio management discipline, the architectural controls to actually execute and enforce that strategy consistently, its impact will be muted.
So governance provides the rails for the strategy train to run on.
That's a good way to put it. Good governance strengthens the strategy's punch. And the empirical evidence points to a few key governance factors that really seem to boost performance. One, the information strategy needs to be genuinely formulated and owned by top management, not just an IT initiative. Two, there needs to be clear supervision and control over the execution processes. And three, having board members with some IT background or understanding really helps ensure strategic alignment and commitment right from the very top.
Okay, we've covered the theories, the practices, the frameworks, the success stories like Jim Barton. But let's be real, putting this stuff into practice is messy. There are tensions, political challenges. Let's dig into some of those critical perspectives and potential pitfalls. First big one, creating the vision itself. Should it be purely top-down from the CIO and executive team, or more of a shared collaborative effort?
That's a classic tension, and honestly, there are valid arguments on both sides. The purely top-down approach, often associated with strong leaders like John Cotter emphasizes during turnarounds, definitely provides clarity, speed, and a single strong direction. Sometimes, especially in a crisis, you need that decisive leadership from the top.
But the downside?
The downside, especially in today's tech world with highly skilled, often autonomous teams, is that a purely top-down vision can feel imposed, even dictatorial. It might not generate deep buy-in. People tend to support what they help create, right?
So the argument for shared or bottom-up?
Is that it builds much deeper commitment and ownership. When teams feel they've had a voice in shaping the direction, they're far more invested in making it happen. Plus, let's face it, often the people on the front lines, the engineers, the architects, they have crucial insights into technological possibilities or practical constraints that the C-suite might completely miss. Tapping into that collective intelligence is vital.
So what's the practical path for a CIO? How do they balance this?
I think the most effective CIOs find a hybrid approach. They typically set the high-level strategic direction, the what and why, the non-negotiable destination. Maybe it's, we need to become a leader in leveraging AI for customer personalization. That comes from the top.
Okay, well, it says the boundary.
Exactly. But then they actively involve the teams, the domain experts, in figuring out the how. How does that vision translate into specific actions, goals, and technical roadmaps within the respective areas? This way, you get both clarity of purpose and that crucial sense of ownership and buy-in from the people who have to execute it.
Okay, balancing top-down direction with bottom-up engagement. Let's tackle the second big challenge area, and maybe the trickiest, the ethical dilemmas and unintended consequences of incentives. We know they're needed, but how can they go wrong?
Oh, they can go wrong in so many ways if not designed and monitored carefully. The biggest danger is probably gaming the system.
People figuring out how to hit the metric without achieving the real goal.
Precisely. If you tie bonuses too narrowly to just one or two easily quantifiable metrics, let's say, number of trouble tickets closed per week, or lines of code written per month, people will naturally optimize their behavior to maximize that metric, often at the expense of other important but unmeasured activities. Like taking the time to properly document their work, or mentoring a junior colleague, or doing that necessary but unglamorous code refactoring to reduce technical debt, or collaborating effectively on a cross-functional project that doesn't directly impact their specific bonus metric. The rewarded behavior crowds out other valuable work.
That sounds like it could lead to a very brittle, short-sighted culture over time. What about rewarding speed or aggression?
That's another major pitfall. If you put really aggressive financial incentives on hitting unrealistic deadlines, what happens? Teams might cut corners on quality assurance, skip security reviews, introduce technical debt just to hit the date. That creates long-term risks.
And potentially burns people out.
Absolutely. It can lead to chronic overwork, stress, burnout, which raises serious ethical questions about employee well-being. Plus, as we touched on with Room and Pink, the motivational power of purely extrinsic rewards like bonuses can be fleeting. People quickly come to expect them, and if they're ever reduced or removed, it's perceived as a punishment, creating this kind of motivational treadmill that's hard to sustain.
So given these dangers, how does a CIO design and manage incentives responsibly? How do they defend against these unintended consequences?
This is where a framework like the Balanced Scorecard becomes more than just a measurement tool. It's a crucial governance mechanism. By forcing leaders to consider and measure performance across multiple perspectives, financial, customer, internal process, learning, and growth, it naturally guards against optimizing just one metric to the detriment of others.
So the balance itself is the safeguard.
It is. You can't just chase deployment speed, internal process, if your customer satisfaction metrics, are tanking because of buggy releases. The BSC makes those trade-offs visible. Beyond frameworks, though, it requires constant vigilance from leadership. The CIO needs to actively monitor how the incentive system is influencing behavior, look for those unintended consequences, and perhaps most importantly, be willing to adjust the system if it starts promoting the wrong things. It's not a one-time design. It's an ongoing tuning process.
Constant vigilance and adjustment. Okay, let's wrap up this section with a big philosophical question that always seems to come up. Vision versus execution. In the end, which one matters more?
The age-old debate. You often hear that cynical but quite potent phrase, vision without execution is just hallucination.
Yeah, I've heard that one. Lots of beautiful strategy decks gathering dust.
Exactly. You can have the most inspiring vision in the world, but if you lack the operational discipline, the aligned resources, the effective incentives, the process controls to actually make it happen, it's meaningless. It rings hollow.
Okay, so execution is king.
But hold on. The flip side is also true. Execution without an inspiring vision, without a clear strategic context, that's just, well, it's just activity. Aimless churning. Highly skilled people, especially knowledge workers, get demotivated quickly if they don't understand the why behind their work. Leaders who focus only on optimizing the current quarter's execution might be incredibly efficient right up until the moment their entire industry gets disrupted because they missed the bigger picture.
So it's not really either.
It's absolutely not. Both are completely essential.
Yeah.
You need the vision to inspire, guide, and prioritize the execution. And you need disciplined execution to make the vision real, to turn the dream into results. The resolution, I think, lies in focusing on strategic alignment.
Strategic alignment, meaning?
Meaning the continuous effort to ensure that what people are doing day to day, the execution, is directly contributing to achieving the long-term strategic goals, the vision. And it requires discipline on both ends. The CIO needs the rigor to constantly adjust the execution machinery, the processes, the budgets, the metrics, the incentives to better serve the vision. But they also need the courage, if the market feedback or execution reality demands it, to adjust the vision itself. It's a dynamic interplay. Hashtag tag tag outro. So wrapping things up, what we've really explored today is how successful CIOs drive organizational outcomes by mastering that blend of clarity and energy. The strategy, the vision that provides the clarity, the why, the unifying purpose that guides everyone.
And the energy comes from?
The energy comes from getting the how right. That means using thoughtful, well-aligned incentives, both extrinsic and intrinsic, and employing disciplined frameworks like the Balanced Scorecard or OKRs to translate the vision into concrete action and keep everyone focused and motivated. It's about bridging that persistent execution gap.
Making the strategy actually happen.
Exactly. And we saw that while those systematic tools are crucial for structure and measurement, especially at scale, the real key to unlocking sustained high performance, particularly in knowledge work, lies in tapping into those deep intrinsic motivators, giving people autonomy, helping them achieve mastery, and connecting them to a meaningful purpose. Ultimately, leadership is about creating an environment where talented people are energized and enabled to do their best work towards a shared goal.
Okay, so here's something for you, the listener, to think about as you reflect on this deep dive. Consider your current job, or maybe a significant project you were involved in recently. Can you pinpoint one specific, measurable key metric? Maybe it was system uptime, maybe user satisfaction scores, employee retention, maybe time to market for new features. What metric would definitively prove that the underlying strategy was successful, not just that the technical tasks were completed?
That's a great question.
Yeah, thinking about that difference between just delivering outputs versus achieving real strategic outcomes, that's where executive level thinking really begins.
Absolutely. And remember our closing thought. Technology drives change, but leadership drives impact. Keep learning, keep growing, and lead the future you want to create.